Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Talking Sports with Alec Pecano. Let's get right into it. We are going over the Pac 12 preseason standings tonight. At number 12, I'm not gonna go as in depth with this because I don't watch much Pac 12 football, but I'll try my best to explain why I have certain teams where I have them. Number 12, I have Stanford. I have watched some of their spring game, and I'm not impressed at all with them. And I think they're not going to finish. I don't think they're going to have a good season because they're in a tough conference, and I just don't see them doing really good. And that's all I have to say on them. Number 11, I have University of California, the Golden Bears. The reason I have them here is because I feel like they're trying to figure out where they are. And in another slide, you will see why I say this about the team, about a couple of the teams that are a little higher up in my rankings that you will hear about in a few. Back to Cal. I just don't see an avenue where they finish higher than 10 in the standings at the end of the season. And I don't really know much about them. I know their coach is on the hot seat, Justin Wilcox. I did read an article about that. He is on the hot seat. So this could be his final shot at being their head coach. Number 10, I have Washington State. I feel like Washington State is going to be right around here in the final rankings. They could be just a tad bit higher, but I don't know because I don't watch, like I said, I don't watch that much Pac-12 football. So this is very non-biased. So at number 9, I have Arizona State. They are an interesting team in many ways. One, because they have a new head coach. And I don't know what he's going to do in his first year at Arizona State. I could see them being 9, 10 in the bottom portion of the ranking, in the bottom portion of the standings. When I do this again at the end of the season and next month, right before the season starts, at number 8, I have their rivals, Arizona. And Arizona, they have been hitting the ground running with recruiting. They have one of the best classes in the Pac-12, other than, of course, USC and UCLA. And you may see UCLA here in a minute, and then you're going to see a little bit later in my rankings teaser, you're going to see USC. I'm not going to say where. You just have to wait and see. But back to Arizona. I have Arizona at number 8. When I do my rankings before the season next month, they could be higher in the rankings, which is they could be in the next tier of rankings. But this is preseason, so this is before the season and during the off season. They have been doing a good job of recruiting with, I believe their head coach is Jed Fish. But I don't see them winning more than 5 or 6 games, possibly making a bowl game. They're not winning the Pac-12. Now let's get to number 7. And a lot of people are going to have a debate with me on this. Hold up. Let me see. Did I? AirPods. I apologize for that. I just had to make sure that I had the right stuff connected to this so y'all don't hear any background noise. Back to so UCLA. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, Alec, why is UCLA number 7? Here's my short explanation. Because you lost your QB, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He left. He graduated. So you don't know who your starting quarterback's going to be. And that's why I have UCLA at number 7. Now, moving on to number 6. And this is a surprise, probably to everybody. At number 6, I have Colorado with their new head coach, Deion Primetime Sanders. And I have them here because I think they're going to surprise a lot of people in Deion's first year in Colorado. I think Colorado could finish higher than 6, but they could also finish at number 6. If everything goes well, they could finish 4, 5, maybe 6th in the Pac-12. And that's all I have to say on Colorado. Number 5, Oregon. I like Oregon. Don't get me wrong. I could have put them higher, but I chose not to due to the fact that I don't know who their QB. The QB is going to be Bo Nix. But the question is, how good will he be in his second year at Oregon? At number 4, I have Washington. I have Washington here because they're going to be good. I don't think they win the Pac-12. There's 3 teams in front of them that I think could. And let's get to number 3. That would be Utah. I think Utah has a good chance, as the next 2 teams do, of winning the Pac-12. Because the top, there, as you can see, there's no divisions in the Pac-12 anymore. It's the top 2 teams make the conference championship game. And I think Utah has a really good chance of making the Pac-12 championship game this year. But there's 2 teams in front of them, like I said, that I think have the best chance of making that championship game in the Pac-12. And I will get to them in a minute. But backtrack. Let me finish with Utah first. The reason I have them at 3 is because they do have a returning QB and Cam Rising. But they lost their tight end, Dalton Kincaid, to the NFL. And they lost a couple other guys to the NFL. So they're replacing a lot of talent. And now, number 2, I have Oregon State. I like Oregon State a lot. But I don't know. Jonathan Smith is a good head coach. And I think this is probably his last year at Oregon State before he gets a big time job, if he wants to take it. whether it be in the SEC or the Big Ten if a coach gets fired. And moving on, number one in my Pac 12 preseason rankings, to no one's surprise it should be, is USC with head coach Lincoln Riley and quarterback Caleb Williams. They're here at number one in my preseason rankings for the Pac 12 for that reason. I think USC could win the Pac 12 this year. And here's slide number 2. Conference realignment. I'm going to go into short detail on conference realignment. Starting with Texas. They will be moving to the SEC from the Big 12 either in 2024 or 2025. And personally, they built the Big 12. They were one of the thoroughbreds of the Big 12. I don't like this move for Texas. And same with the next team, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Texas, you're going to be in the same conference either next year or the year after. I think it's going to be 2024 because I've already seen the schedules for the SEC for 2024, and it includes Oklahoma and Texas. So I'm pretty sure 2024 is going to be the first year that Texas is in the SEC. And I don't like it, but I think it's going to make the SEC more competitive. You're not going to have the same team winning the SEC every year, whether it be Alabama or whether it be Georgia. It's gonna be a lot more harder to win the SEC going forward. Next team is Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is leaving from the Big 12 to go to the SEC next year along with Texas, as I said a few minutes ago. And I don't know how this is going to work, but I think it's going to make the SEC a lot more competitive. I know it was already competitive, but I just think it's going to be more competitive with how it's always either Georgia or Alabama or LSU winning the SEC. I think this is going to open the door for more lower tier teams in the SEC to compete and maybe win the conference. Third team I'm going to talk about, and I don't understand this at all, is UCLA. Moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten next year. This has already been finalized. Geographically, I don't understand the logic behind UCLA going to the Big Ten. Because for Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Rutgers, Purdue, Minnesota, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska. That's 5 or 6 hour flight, depending on the weather, every year that you have to make. And I don't understand the move for them. Excuse me. The next, and the same goes with the next team, and that is USC moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten in 2024, as that has already been finalized. And like I said, I don't really agree with this, but I know why USC and UCLA did this. Money. And the thing is, with these two teams, they didn't want to wait around for the Pac-12 to try to get a new TV deal. The whole reason they're leaving is because the Pac-12 is going to probably end up disbanding at some point. I've heard numerous rumors from other credible college football sources that the Big 12 is trying to. I didn't put them on here because I don't know when it's going to happen, what year, and what conference these teams are going to go to. But I've heard that the Big 12 is trying to get Colorado State, Washington State, and a few other teams from the Pac-12, Mountain West, to come and join them, to go join the Big 12, so they could have all four corners covered of the country. And I don't mind that, but it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'll explain it at the end of the next three. So let's get to another team that I think is, unfortunately, and I'm a fan of them, but these next three teams, the current conference they're in, I think is going to end up disbanding, and all the teams in it are going to have to find a new conference. And I'm going to tell you where these three teams I think will go. Number one is USF. I think USF will end up in the SEC or some other conference, SEC, whether it be SEC, ACC, maybe the Big Ten if the Big Ten wants to keep adding teams. By 2028, they will be in a new conference. And here's why. I don't think the group of five is going to stick around once these other conferences decide, we want to expand and make our conference bigger. And I just don't see a room where USF and all the other teams in the American survive. So they're going to say, you know what? Let's disband the American and let's have so-and-so, for example, FAU. Let's go see if we can get into one of the other mega conferences that's going to end up happening, whether it be the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12. And I think USF's going to fall into that bend of one of those teams that's going to end up having to find a new conference. Same with the next team. And I keep hearing rumors. Memphis to the Big 12. Memphis is going to go to the Big 12 at some point. And yes, I believe the rumors. I think that it will happen. I just don't know when. Right here, as you can see, I say 2027. It could happen It could happen in 2027. It could happen earlier than that, because they wanted to be one of the three teams that the Big 12 took this time around when they expanded. But it didn't happen, so now they're still stuck in the American. And I think the next time a conference expands, they will call Memphis, because Tennessee is a thoroughbred, whether it be Memphis, Chattanooga, Knoxville. It is a thoroughbred for recruiting for football. Not as much basketball, but more for football. And I think Memphis would fit perfect in the Big 12 or the SEC. And the last team I'm going to talk about for leaving for a new conference is East Carolina. I think they will hop over to they will leave the AAC and East Carolina to Big Ten in 2028 or 2029. But I didn't put 2029 on there because I think they're going to do it in 2028. because I think, like I said a minute ago, I think the AAC is going to disband and not exist anymore in the next couple years because Memphis is probably going to leave. USF, if they do get invited to a new conference, I think they leave. And East Carolina's going to say, okay, if USF and Memphis leave, I'm not sticking around in the American. I'm going to go somewhere where I think I can get a lot of money to play football and build my brand, because East Carolina has had a good last couple seasons in the American. And I just think that they will not stick around in the American if the other two teams I just talked about leave. And now, to wrap up this section, I'm going to give you my opinion on expansion, the so-called, what everybody doesn't want to hear is mega conferences. I don't personally, I don't care for it. But I know that's the way it's heading, because you got a lot of colleges that have big money for NIL that can pay these kids $5-6 million in NIL money for endorsements from companies. But it's going to hurt the smaller schools. It's going to hurt the USF. It's going to hurt a Memphis. It's going to hurt an East Carolina when we get the mega conferences. No matter what conference they go to, because they're going to be in a purgatory then. They're going to be at the bottom of that conference because they won't be able to stay up in the recruiting game with the teams in whatever conference they decide to go transition into when we do end up getting the mega conferences, which could be within the next few years. And personally, like I said, I don't really care for expansion, but not expansion. I don't really care for the mega conferences because it's going to take the fun out of watching college football. Because you're going to still probably have an Alabama, Georgia, maybe Oklahoma or Texas win the SEC. Big Ten, it's probably going to be a lot more competitive. ACC, if they still are around, who knows? Because that's another conference I've heard that might disband. And some of those teams might go over to the Big 12 or the SEC or the Big 10. But we'll just have to wait and see on expansion. And the last thing I'm going to go over, here is my Scream at me. And thank you. That does it for the show tonight. Please feel free to leave a like and comment, and please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. It'd be very appreciative on my end if y'all subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great night.